All right, everybody, welcome back to the Cain Stevens Super Show. I've got a returning guest. I love when they return. I can't believe when they return because I figure usually that they just run away screaming and crying and wish they never talked to me. But sometimes I'm lucky enough to have them come back. So we had this guest on before. We talked about exorcism. We talked about all that ooky spooky stuff that I like, but everybody else seems to be terrified of. But she's not. So with that being said, let's bring on my guest. Eva Vennari, everybody. Welcome back. How are you?
Thanks for having me, Cain. It's good to be here.
Yeah, so what's changed since the last time I talked to you? I mean, have you had any big things going on?
Oh, I mean, there's always big things going on, but I had a wonderful call, a follow-up from our conversation. A lady was complaining about her house, and so we had an opportunity to do an exorcism on the house.
Yeah. Well, what I mean, we mentioned it. Why not just dig into it, right? So,
Yeah.
I invested. We talked about it last time. I invite you guys to go back if you haven't listened to it. Go back and listen to my first interview with Eva Vennari, and where we talked about exorcism. We talked about many actually cool things. You were actually one of my favorite guests. I mean, you're a
Oh,
great guest. You're just fun to talk to, and it's like I'm such a loser in my regular life. I got to do this type of thing to talk to cool people. So, but that so what happened was, as I investigated a house in Arnold Heights area in Lincoln, Nebraska. It's where I grew up. I want to write a book about how haunted this neighborhood is, but this house in particular, I've now investigated twice, and so I talked to you about it, and you told me that if they got a hold of you, that you could wipe them clean. You could get these spirits out of there. They're tired of being touched. They're tired
yep.
of being shocked. Things. So tell me about how it went down. We won't mention the address to protect the people. I don't want all you spooky people hanging out in their yard, but we will kind of mention them from time to time. So Ava, tell me about your conversation with them, what you can share and what happened.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, we don't want to be creepy, right? So there were multiple spirits in the home of all or different origins. It was not just a single ghost hanging out trying to take ownership of the house. It was a a novel of information coming from each individual, and they all wanted to come forward one at a time and reveal to me the story. And I, I mean, we had a conversation on the show, but it wasn't. We didn't get too detailed. We knew about the guy in the garage. We knew about his suicide, but we didn't. I don't remember if I tuned into the how yet, but the more information that I was able to share, the more that the homeowner was like, "Oh my God, yeah, that's exactly what it is. What's going on?" And we went from. I asked her at the beginning of the session. It took an hour, and I says, "How do you feel?" She goes, "I am so scared." I go, "Why? Because what we're about to do, or because you're home alone in the house?" She goes, "I'm home alone in the house, and I don't like doing that."
Yeah.
And by the time we were done, not to make a long story short, we can go into all the detail, but this is how you feel now. She's like, I think I've lost touch. It wasn't her words, but I figured she lost touch with what it feels like to be safe and then articulate that.
Yeah. Because you sat in that for so, and that's what people forget when you have an experience, a haunting, and you start to feel unsafe and uneasy. You kind of forget when you move to a different place, like, oh my gosh, this is how it's supposed to feel, right? Like I can walk downstairs and not be looking over my shoulder and thinking that somebody's there, right?
Yeah. Yeah, she was uncomfortably used to. And it really is true. We humans, we adapt so well, so fast, so easily, and we brush it off, going, "Well, I moved here. I need to make the best of it."
Yeah.
Do you?
Well, I guess did she vent to you about me and my team? Did she say, "Man, Cain Stevens, what an idiot," you
No,
know?
no, it wasn't a vent. It was a share. She's like, "Yeah, he's been here a few times." And
Yeah.
I remember what you said, that you thought maybe something had followed you home, but there wasn't anything there willing to leave. I mean, just it took a bit.
What seemed like it was centered around me, and I'm not one of these dramatic people that thinks that everything is following me and all this. It's just like all the equipment was going off around me. We had like SLS hits where you could physically see the figures like around me and reaching for me. And I'm such a nerd. I mean, I just go diving into these rooms without even thinking about it. And then it like creeps me out as it's happening, like as I'm getting cold chills and all this stuff. It's really wild.
Yeah, the creep out part, that's part of our nervous system that alerts us that we are in trouble. Yes.
I have that.
Right.
I have like a heightened sense of awareness at all. I always have. You know what I mean? Like, and it's not like I'm a paranoid schizophrenic or something. It's just like when I was on big job sites when I used to be an electrician years ago. I always had like a keen sense of everything around me. You know, I always knew when the pipe was falling behind me to step out of the way. And so I don't know what that is. I don't know if it's an intuition or anything like that, but it's just I have a heightened sense of awareness for sure.
Well, would you like my hypothesis on this, just to take a little bit of a tangent for a second?
Yeah, please.
So we have an aura field. I don't know if you're aware of the larger unseen part of the physical body is about 9 meters wide.
Okay.
So if you've ever walked in or been in a room and somebody walks in and you're not looking at the door, but you notice the feeling of, oh, somebody's looking at me, and you turn and, oh, there they are. Well, so your 9 meters and their 9 meters becomes one of those, what's that
Interesting.
called? Where they intersect.
Yeah.
That
So do you think that's what
the
it
vent,
is? Do you think
the
that it's
vent,
this type of
yeah,
thing is like crossed in my aura or whatever, and I just
the Venn diagram where things cross over. So you have information is coming into your unseen but yet still physical, metaphysical body, and you're picking up on those sensations. It's the sixth sense.
man, there we go with Bruce Willis and everything, right? And what do you think of all this stuff with Bruce Willis? Have you been tapping into this? I mean, it looks like he's going to be unresponsive. He's like basically unresponsive now where he can't even communicate. It's so sad.
We've known about the diagnosis for a while. I remember when it was announced, but I didn't see any updates recently. So now he's gone unresponsive, huh?
That's what they're saying, but you know, you never know with the internet. Like people speculate and say things, but I think I read an article something about Demi Moore saying that he's like getting worse and worse. Obviously, like it's going pretty fast in that sense. But man, what a star and what like I mean, I don't know the guy personally. Maybe he was awful in his regular life. I don't know, but just like his on-screen persona and everything, he was kind of one of the cooler but more regular action guys, right? It's because it's not like he was so ridiculously handsome, like you know, like Brad Pitt or something. But he was like believable, you know, like in Die Hard.
Oh, believable is Die Hard. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. Well, yeah, for an '80s movie, believable,
Yeah, I
right?
know. Which one? Die Hard 1, Die Hard 2, Die Harder, I can't remember them all. There were so many. That was funny.
My favorite is Die Hard with a Vengeance. I
Yes.
don't know if you remember that was with Samuel L. Jackson, and he goes into the racist neighborhood, and they're like doing all this, and the Germans are putting him through all this crazy stuff. I mean, spoiler alert, everybody! It's the guy's son from the first one. So, oh, they're like, dang it, this movie's only been out for 100 years, but you spoiled it for me. Oh man.
Now that's some creepy stuff right there.
It is some creepy stuff. So here's a question for you. Do you believe that Die Hard is a Christmas movie or do you think it's not? What does your family say?
No, just because it came out during Christmas season with Christmas lights, no.
I'm on the no train as well. I think this isn't a Christmas movie just because it happens to be during Christmas time, right? It's
Right.
definitely not Santa
Right.
Claus and the sleighs and all that.
Now,
Yeah,
if he was battling Santa Claus, then it would be a Christmas movie.
exactly. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Couldn't he just have punched Santa Claus a few times and like just taken the whole holiday over with?
Right.
But well, we tend to get off on a strange tangent on this show, don't we?
Tangent. Yeah, yes.
Let's get back to the exorcism and you know out for just for we'll get into it a little bit more, but can you explain to the listener like how you can tap into these things like in kind of a layman's way of doing it? Could you kind of explain how this works for you?
Sure. Well, I'll use Bruce Willis as a reference. So he did that movie, Sixth Sense, and the child was the one who could see dead people. And well, me too. Ta-da. And it's just here. It's in the theater of the mind, which is the same place where we dream. It's the same place. Think of it seriously as a theater. You've got a screen, and where the information comes from, whatever the real plays, whatever that movie is. It could be your imagination making it up. It could be a memory, something that you dreamed or experienced, or it could be something you're receiving from spirit. And you have to learn, just like you can walk down the street and recognize a best friend, to go, oh, I know that person based on their face, what they look like. You'll have the similar visceral experience in the body that says, this is a memory, this was a dream, this was, you can identify. So now place that idea on all of the senses. We have the five physical senses, and then copy that over to the metaphysical side, and you've got clairaudience, clairsentient, claircognizance. You even have, and I forget what the clairs are called, but you can smell from the other side, and you can taste things from the other side. For example, when my grandmother reached out to me one time, I tasted her blueberry pie, so I knew it was her.
Right.
Okay. So you have these pathways or open dialogues in a very spiritual sense, in addition to all of the tangible ones that come with our physical body. So it's not like if you've never had sight before and all of a sudden you have sight, that's what it is. It's a doubling up of all of your senses and then some. So that's the how. And then using, for me, I have a huge spirit team, and they all came forward for this particular house.
Right.
Yeah.
And so that kind of guided you into what to do. They kind of tell you and help you, guide you to what's going on there, who's there, and what you can do, right?
Oh, first thing I do is, I mean, I'm pretty spiritual hygiene is the utmost importance when you're doing this work. You do not want to be backlash. The other is, I'm not doing the work. I am the mediator. So I'm calling in angels and other guides, my higher self, her higher self, anybody who's in the house that is either related or has information about who's in the house. They're all invited.
Mm-hmm.
And as we approach each individual, they come forward for me. And that's the template, if you will, that I follow.
And do they, when they come forward to you, do they show you anger? Do they show you sadness? Do they show you all of these different emotions all the time?
So remember we were talking about the entity in the basement.
Right.
All right. So immediately I go down into the basement. Again, it's all here. I'm not physically there. I'm on the phone here in Los Angeles, and working with the homeowner. And all I could hear was chatter. The woman was like nonstop. Da, 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 da. And I'm like, I cannot understand what you're saying. You're gonna have to slow down. She was angry, frustrated. Like I think made a note even. It's like she was really not happy about anything. And I
Right.
kept hearing, this is my house. This is my house. And so the homeowner, she's like, oh, I know who that is. That's Nancy. She's the original owner. And oh, I'm getting chills now. So we had a wonderful conversation, and I'm like, all right, Nancy, tell me what's up. What happened here in the house? And so the story revealed itself, and she gave me pictures, and she gave me sight, and she gave me all of this verbal. She goes, this is the only thing I got from my ex-husband. And I went, oh, your house is your house. I said, and then I asked the homeowner, I said, have there been renovations on the home? And she goes, yes. And as soon as she said yes, the entity, Nancy, all these things to say. She was not happy about the renovations. So this is where I get to be a bit of a salesperson and a bit of a problem solver, and like listening to, what does the entity want? And I says, why aren't you wanting to go on to heaven? I says, like, we can send you there, we can move you on. She goes, because he's there. She goes, she was very,
Wow.
she didn't have anything to do with her ex. And those who haven't passed over yet, they're still in the Akashic records, that they're still in the mire of their life. They haven't let it go yet. So they
Right.
don't understand that the eternal being is what's on the other side. So I wasn't going to try to convince that. There was there was no convincing that.
There's no
So
breaking. Yeah.
yeah, she was just, hardcore on this desire to have her house and she wanted it her way and she's not happy about the renovations. I says, okay. So I said, there's something that we can do to give you your home and in peace so that you two, the homeowner and you, Nancy, are not colliding with each other and you can have your privacy. So I gave her the rundown of what that would look like in the other world. And then I gave her a way out. So this is what I did. I says, in the other world, not heaven, but in the other world,
Mm-hmm.
I says, I've just been given permission by the angels to send you there. And you can then recreate your home in its original form and you can have it all to yourself in your own space, however you want it. And I said, if you don't like it, you can come back and talk to me about it.
Yeah. So you gave her an in whenever she wants to beef with you about this whole deal. She can come back.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. So we worked through all of that and she was really, you could see I could see the look on her face was not, she wasn't convinced, but she was willing for the sense of peace. She
Yeah.
really wanted that sense of harmony too. And we talked about the what does she want. And I says, why don't you go there, come back and tell me if you like it right away. And then we can talk about what's forever. She's come back a few times just to say thank you.
Loves it there, right? She's got her house. She's in peace now. Like, why couldn't she? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. So that was just one. That was just one. But yeah, she was all about the talk. Initially, she was very talkative. Was she talkative for you?
What she was, because we had a lot of things trying to come through, and we had like disembodied voices actually. So she must have been strong enough to do so, because we were all sitting in a circle down in the basement, and we heard a female voice twice, the same voice, and it startled us, because I mean it if you haven't been on an investigation before, it's completely startling when there's nothing there and a voice comes through and you know it's none of you, right? Like, you
Yeah.
have it even worse because you see these people and all this other stuff. But the rest of us who can't, it's terrifying.
Well, that's why I'm not there with you.
But that had to have been her, right? She was the one trying to communicate with us because she's a talker. She's trying to get our
Yeah.
attention, correct?
Oh man, she had all kinds of things to say. I had to slow her down. I says, I can hear you, but I'm not sure what you're saying, and I need you to be clear. However, you can get the message across that I can understand. Send me that information. And I got the whole story. And I was sharing it with the homeowner as it was revealing. And she's like, oh my God, yeah, that makes total sense. It's a
She
soap
was
opera.
keeping Christine in the basement. Why did let me ask you this. Why do you think she chose to be in the basement a lot of times? Do you,
Let's see if I can get a line on her to answer the question. Um, I just heard something about that's where she felt the safest.
okay.
The whatever she was brokenhearted. The poor thing. She was really brokenhearted over the relationship. It was constant fighting. So I'm
Right.
wondering if this is just where she went when the fight was done, or she needed to escape from the fight.
See, and that's fascinating. This is a great answer. The question that I've always had is, why do ghosts choose to be in certain areas, right? Like we just investigated a house in here not too far from Lincoln, Nebraska, this weekend, and we got a lot of responses and a lot of things happening upstairs in the attic and downstairs in the basement. And when we would go to one or the other, it was like they were trying to lead us up. Like we used REM pods, right? And we would ask questions, yes or no questions. They would intelligently make this device go off when we were in different areas, and it was like they're trying to lead us back to the attic or back to this. So I wonder to myself all the time, like, why, when they could have free reign of the house, why do they choose these areas?
Yeah, it's either a favorite spot or the place where they died or the place where a piece of them is left.
Mm-hmm. And and for those of you that are skeptics out there, I do want to say this, is that it's okay to be skeptical, right? Like I mean, I would actually be skeptical of you if you weren't a little bit skeptical, is what I'm saying. Because I mean, if you just accept anything, that would be ridiculous. So you all can look at it out there, but I think if you make some of the connections that we're making here, if you guys were a part of the investigations that I was, and I've talked to the homeowners, and then Eva's talked to the homeowners, and then she's connected all the dots, to me it's like a book, It's like we have all these parts of the story. The people who are the ghosts are the, you know, the beginning, then we have the middle, we have all this, and then you're kind of like the end, you know, like you're the end of it all on in a certain way where it all kind of ties together, and that we're starting to get answers here. So, I mean,
Yeah.
if anything, it's a great story.
Well, and it wasn't only human energies in the house. There were portals. There was a what I would call a hellhole. There was the gentleman from the garage. There was a fairy. All kinds of things.
Yeah. Well, what was the you know, I know we talked about it before, but I had more things happen in the garage when we went back in there, you know.
So
So
that yeah, that's where the
I
portal
mean,
is.
this
Yeah.
guy completely pissed. You know, why was he reaching for me? You know, what do you think this guy's deal was? I mean, he
He
killed himself
yeah,
in the garage?
yeah. He was, anger often comes from being hurt, and you can't just kill yourself on a whim, right? This was an end of life story, and it was so sad. I actually received a lot of sorrow when once he realized that I was recognizing him and I could see him, and he said to me, "I'm really sorry that I've caused so much trouble here. I'm okay. Yeah, sorry, just receiving more information." So he says that the portal that was created as a result of his suicide
Hmm.
opened up the space to let these little entities that were running around the house in. And he was more or less yelling at those things.
Yeah. Wow. But he wasn't yelling at me, right? He was okay with me. I mean, he not something knocked my phone over. I had my phone sitting on a tripod in there.
That
This
was a little entity guy. That wasn't him.
makers. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
They didn't want to be filmed for sure because it was like it was a good 20, maybe 30 minutes of just sitting there, and then all of a sudden something just shook it, thumped it, and it was done. You know, it was down, and there was no more filming after that, you know, for so a whole hour of staring at a table. But
Yeah, there was a lot going on, and that's one of the first things I had the angels wanted to do is they show me these visuals that I think most of the humor they show me is for my benefit, so I get to laugh.
yeah,
But they showed me basically angels going around with big satchels, just picking up these little entity things and throwing them in the satchels, going around the house and picking them all up.
well, what are these things? Like, what are these entities? I mean, what would you describe them as?
So if you know the story, origin stories around Lilith,
Hmm.
the first woman, not Eve. Eve was not the first woman. Eve was the first woman who was subservient to Adam.
Okay.
Lilith was created in the same exact method as Adam, according to rumors, right? So that's history. And Lilith became mother to entities,
Okay.
including demons. And so these entities are what was just had access, they had free access, an open portal to the 3D world.
Yeah.
So they were like, "Woo, let's go to Disneyland," and they get to be free and out of where they came from by hanging out around us and causing trouble.
Is Lilith evil? Because I'll tell you why I'm asking this in a moment. But do you believe Lilith was evil?
I don't have a black and white viewpoint on good or bad because here's the thing: even what we consider evil or demonic things cannot touch us without God's permission.
Yeah. Yeah. True.
And this is why all shame, fear, and guilt, that is the permission. Anytime we give somebody a permission slip through shame, guilt, or fear, that's what's allowing for the initial injury, from one of these elemental beings to say, "I'm going to come and attack you." It's not that God's writing out permission slips going, "Yeah, okay, that's all right, you can do that." It's just a natural law of attraction that's applying to these, entities. And it's a new way of looking at it. The it's too black and white to go to what's good and what's bad. Evil has often been used as a way to bring things to a new awareness. Yeah, so there's a reason for it all.
Well, you know, I was doing a radio show with a guy who was a you know, a admitted Satanist. You know, he talked about being a conduit for Lilith, and he talked about having to live in misery, right? And I thought and so I was very interested in what he was saying because I mean I'm religious as I'm older now, but I, you know, before I mocked religion. I didn't understand it. I thought it was a fairy tale. And to each their own, right? I mean, I try not to push it on people. I have my beliefs. I try not to get preachy. But this is the thing is it was hard for me to deal with this guy because I liked him a lot, but I felt like he's picking at me, sometimes. And maybe I'm off base, but I thought maybe because of my ties to Christianity and all that, maybe he was just kind of like annoyed by it, but I never really brought it up. Like, I mean, I just did the radio show like a regular guy, didn't talk about that.
Yeah.
But why do you think he believes that he's I know you don't need to contact him obviously, but why do you think he believes that he's a conduit to Lilith, and why do you think he thinks that he has to be live in misery?
I don't know. I think that would be a good follow-up question for him, even if he didn't appear on the show, but you could post about it. But that's I mean, I would be conjecturing. I'm not certain. That's
I
yeah.
should have him on the show. I mean, and not even for like a spiritual debate. Like, just I like to give everybody the open forum, so because I think it's hard to understand everybody if we don't give the other sides, right, an opportunity to talk. I mean, this guy is harmless. This guy's a nice guy. I mean, he means well, and I have nothing against him. I just felt uncomfortable around, especially later on in the radio show. And if he's listening, and I know he listens to the show, come on the show and we'll talk about it a little bit more.
Sometimes, especially your discomfort, because you have the spidey sense, if you will. The sixth sense turns on, gives you information. So there could just be his association. This is my guessing. I'm guessing here with some knowledge that the association he has with the, let's call it the underworld, Lilith, and all of the elementals, including the demonic realm, he could have an attachment. And that attachment is something that you would feel, pick up and go, that feels a little weird. Something's off. I'm not quite sure. Then again, he could just be on the spectrum. And that also can make a person feel a little bit, uneasy. I'm on the spectrum, but I think that's a magnifier for our gifts. So, anyways.
Well, I think that that's a fair assessment. Yeah, you would need more information. You'd probably have to talk to him in order. But, the jury's out on that. But yes, I will invite, I won't name him, but I'll just invite him. I'm sure he does listen to the show. Come on the show. We'll talk about it if you feel like it. And just know that I always did like you as a person. I just felt uncomfortable. Right. I just, there were a lot of, yeah, I have that weird feeling, that heightened awareness. Like I'll share something else with you.
Hey there, human friend. Are you tired of your beard looking like a bird's nest after a windstorm?
Whoa, what? Who's there?
It's just me, your friendly neighborhood Sasquatch. I couldn't help but notice your, rustic beard situation.
Right? Thanks for pointing that out, Bigfoot. But what can I do about it?
Fear not, my follicle challenge friend. Introducing the Elegant Sasquatch Grooming Company. We specialize in grooming products that'll make your beard as majestic as a redwood tree.
Elegant Sasquatch? Sounds fancy. What do they have?
We've got everything a discerning Sasquatch or human needs to keep their facial foliage in top condition. Beard washes to cleanse away the forest grime, beard balms to tame those wild whiskers, beard oils to nourish and hydrate, and beard butters to make it as soft as a bunny's fur.
Wow, that's quite the lineup. Why should I choose the Elegant Sasquatch, though?
Because, my friend, we believe in sophistication for our outer beast. Just because you're a Sasquatch or a human doesn't mean you can't be classy.
I never thought I'd hear a Sasquatch talk about sophistication. All right, you've convinced me. Where can I find these products?
Head on over to the elegantsasquatchco.etsy.com and use the code SUPERSHOW to save 20%. Your beard will thank you.
Thanks, Sasquatch. I'll make sure to check it out. And hey, maybe next time we meet, my beard will be as elegant as yours.
Now that's the spirit, my friend. Happy grooming.
I have this strange superhero capability, and I'm serious about this, and no one will believe me, but I can catch anything falling around me, like ninja like stuff. So the other day, my dogs are always around me when I'm cooking, and of course there's so many things dogs aren't supposed to eat, which is but they want to eat everything. I was taking a bite of this thing that I was cooking, and it starts like spewing out a little bit, and it starts falling, and like in a matter of like a brief partial second, I reach under and I catch it like without even thinking about it, man. And it's just like I don't know. I don't know if I'm Iron Man. I don't know if I'm Batman, but
Cat-like reflexes.
that's what it is. But I have a strange keen sense. Like I should have been an NFL wide receiver. Like I literally have always been able to catch stuff at all times. But what is that all about? I mean, is that some sort of do you have any of that? Like what are your weird gifts
Oh
aside from
yeah.
aside from like yeah, not that that
I
isn't
mean,
something.
yeah, if I didn't share before, I feel like before I became a physical person, I went to the superstore Walmart of spiritual gifts and said, add store to cart, buy now.
Yeah.
Um, I have a number of gifts that came in that I became aware of at a young age, including the ability to communicate with the other side.
Yeah.
Um, the clairvoyance is a gift that not everyone has, and that came in very clear, so I knew I had those things. But then all of the other, like the clairs that I talked about, developed those over time. And then as I spoke with other healers, and of course angels, because they are the ones who trained me on a lot of this stuff, which there's no certification program or college you can go to, not really, to get that information. Like when you're trained by angels, you're just trained by angels. Yeah, so the gift of being able to create the light to heaven, apparently that's a rare gift. Not everybody has that. The ability to remotely, intel with the different entities and recognize them, that those are all individual gifts. The ability to soul retrieve,
Mhm.
talked about that I think last time, when it comes to hauntings and recordings and all of the differences between those and how they're related. So the big gift that came in with having autism was seeing patterns and recognizing how things relate to each other and connecting dots in a way that others just don't see. So
Yeah.
that's been very helpful.
Well, I have some family members close to me that are that are on the spectrum, and I've always, to be honest with you, a lot of people have accused me as well of being on the spectrum. Like, and I don't know what for whatever reason that's what they feel about it. I don't know. The jury's out on any of that, but I'll say this: like, why do you think that it's coming forward more now? Like, I mean, because obviously with the world's greatest um decades that we had and all the old people, nobody really dealt with their feelings, or they put right, like if a kid was a little bit off, they try to shove them into like a
Yeah,
sanatorium or something.
go outside and play. Yeah.
Yeah, that was it. Don't come
That's
back
what I got.
dark, right? Why do you think that is? Why do you think that now it's more prevalent? Like it seems, is it just because we know more about it? Like has it always been this way?
Some of it, and a lot of women don't get diagnosed. A lot of women were not diagnosed as children because our stems were just easily expressed as, well, that she's just being a girl, like hair twirling,
Yeah.
or massaging the hands, or working with fingers. Like all of that stuff is a lot of stem work that can be easily overlooked as she's just being a kid. um Boys who are manifesting the spectrum, whether it's usually ADHD, because they go hand in hand. Um, I had dyslexia, different,
Hmm.
way different than ADHD. So for me, it was a learning disability, right?
Right.
Instead of, oh, your brain works differently. And they did not understand learning styles back when I was a kid. And this is true for anybody who's Gen X. Like you just were not to be seen. I mean, you were to be seen and not heard.
Yeah.
Go outside to play. Your opinion doesn't matter. You're a kid. What do you know? A lot of that, a lot of dismissive behavior. So parents were not paying attention to their kids in the same fashion as they are now today. So I used to come home and I would smell the pot roasts cooking on the stove, and I could point out all of the ingredients as I was walking in. Oh, you added something new. I can smell, that's different. Yet being able to go into another part of the house and notice the tiniest little thing is now out of, it's in a different place. It's out of place. You'd notice that. That's autism. That's on the spectrum. So there's a bunch of little things that it was chalked up to Eva's different.
Yeah. But did they, was it a, if you don't mind me asking, was it a negative thing for you? Was it hard? Like, did people treat you badly? I mean, you don't have to share too much, but if you want to, you can.
Yeah.
Like, did people treat you like
Yeah,
you
I
were
was I was definitely bullied by my own family. So my siblings bullied. Yeah, not to go into detail about it, don't need to, but the concept of being different made you pick on a bull. I mean, that's just the way it was. And I was told that's normal for your siblings to make fun of you. Not to that degree. And along with my chronic illness, I don't know if I shared that part of the story or what we have time for today, but I ended up as a young adult with 30 different symptoms that were diagnosable, but the only cure was for medication, including depression, anxiety, insomnia, fibromyalgia, itchy skin, heart palpitations, short-term memory loss, infertility, autoimmune disorder. The list goes on.
Wow.
And I think that is in large part, usually adrenal burnout goes hand in hand with being on the spectrum because we have less energy. So all of this was unknown. And so I kept putting all of my autism, we make a list of all the things that are wrong that we want to get rid of symptom wise. And so my autism symptoms, I now call them features. My autism features were mixed in with my physical ailments. And once I learned, I had already gotten rid of, by the time I was 38 or something, I got rid of all of the chronic issues. And then I had left the things that I knew about from that I didn't know were autism on that list still. So it was very healing for me to be able to say, these are just features of me. I don't need to be labeled as much as I need to be accepting and go with this and not look like I need to overcome something that I simply haven't been able to since the beginning of time for me. Yeah, so it was very healing. But yeah, I was spoken to very harshly. Learning disability, you have a difficult time putting together sentences as a child. And so I remember very distinctly my mom saying to me, Eva, if you don't have the full sentence, don't start to speak it. So I never had time to, there was never time to speak. So yeah, you get a lot of harsh criticisms for the little things because there's no compassion coming from the person who doesn't know.
Well, luckily, I will say this. Luckily, in this day and age, people are starting to understand it a little bit more. I think there's a lot more awareness that needs to be spread, and I think people definitely need to be more kind. Once they find out that people are autistic, and not look at them like they're like they're freaks and this and that. That drives me so crazy because
Yeah.
I feel like the intelligence is through the roof on on people. I think that it might even be an evolved mind that we just don't understand, to be honest with you.
Well, I don't think it's a disorder. I am in the middle of writing a book called From Spectrum to Collective. And I think that the typical mind people who've been ruling the world call those with the atypical brain dysfunctional because it's different from theirs. But really, we all just are on the same human spectrum, So the collective, if you will, it's very interesting to start looking at this, like you said, more as a gift where we're different and where we're able to pick up on and solve. I don't know any neurotypical people who can do what I do. I don't.
Yeah. Well, you're operating in your field of what you do, especially with all this, at a very high level, and I'm grateful to have someone of your caliber on my show. I think that you come off really well. I really enjoy talking to you. I know we're running out of time for you, but I do want to just revisit. I have one more question before we go.
Yeah.
I know we kind of went off on a tangent, but I felt it was an important tangent. Except for maybe the Bruce Willis stuff. But what do you do, right?
Useful. I made it useful. All good.
Yeah. But so the people who lived in this house, they always wondered, I believe, if the mom, who had passed away, the first wife of the husband, was still there. Do you believe that she's still there?
Are you talking about Nancy or someone else?
Someone else. Did you
I,
think that they were actually there, or do you think it was just Nancy and the other spirits the whole time?
I think it was Nancy. There was also a shadow that appeared to the child as another child.
Yeah.
And that was not a child. It was a fairy because we got the hold of this guy by the scruff of his neck, by the back here. And I kept asking him questions, and he acted like he was sketched out on meth. And I went, "Oh, you're a fairy. What are you talking about, man? No, I'm not a man." He was really entertaining. So I handed him off to um, Mother Gaia, the fairy queen, and so she took care of him. She's like, "Oh no, we know who he is. We know what he's been doing. We'll take care of him from here." So I think that's who possibly could have been acting as another entity.
And this is also fascinating. I wish I could talk to you for 5 or 6 more hours. Maybe we'll have a part 3 sometime. Eventually, I'm gonna keep punching the clock with you until you've just like I've had it with this show. But I'd love to have you back again. There's just so much to talk about in so little time, right?
Always. There is a lot. I have a lot of stories, not just Christine's, but
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, thank you so much for being on the show. I know you've got some other stuff going on today, and I was a tad bit a skosh late to the. I need an assistant. If you're out there, hit me up. I need an assistant. So thank you, Eva, for being on the show. I
Good to
appreciate
be here.
you, and we will see you again. All right.
Very soon.
All right. Take care.